military people, who was the how on earth did he pass basic training guy. I was an instructor at an Army aviation school, teaching new soldiers the technical skills required to maintain helicopters. Most of the students were fresh out of basic training, eager, disciplined, and ready to absorb every bit of information they could. Then there was this one guy, a student whose presence made every instructor pause and question reality. From the start, it was clear he was different. Apparently, he was on the autism spectrum, though he functioned well enough to meet the Army's baseline requirements. He was excellent at physical tasks, which explained how he managed to pass basic training. In the classroom, he was also highly intelligent, capable of absorbing material if instructions were direct and explicit. When guided step by step, he was impressive. When left to navigate anything with ambiguity, though, it became obvious that he operated on a completely different wavelength. One day, during a class session, I noticed he wasn't in his seat. I assumed he had gone on a short restroom break, so I continued with the lesson. A few minutes later, I walked into the hall to check on him. That's when I saw him, standing perfectly still, staring intently at the ceiling fan. His eyes were locked, his body unmoving, completely engrossed in the motion above him. I called his name, walked closer, waved my hands in front of his face. Nothing. It took physically touching his arm to finally get him to snap out of it. This wasn't an isolated incident. Other instructors had similar encounters, finding him lost in thought, completely unresponsive, sometimes for minutes at a time. The division chief eventually became involved after a pattern of these episodes was reported. Meetings were held, medical consultations scheduled, and the colonel himself was briefed. It was ultimately determined that allowing him to continue in the aviation program as a helicopter mechanic would pose serious safety risks. The reasoning was simple but unnerving. A helicopter mechanic has to work around enormous spinning rotors, often in high-pressure situations with dozens of moving parts. If he were mesmerized in the same way by a rotor as he was by a ceiling fan in the hallway, the consequences could be catastrophic. Even though he was physically capable and technically intelligent, the Army could not take that risk. The decision was made to reclassify him. I didn't hear much about him for a while after that, until months later when I was deployed to Afghanistan. During a patrol briefing, I noticed a familiar face among the soldiers being assigned to artillery tasks. It was him. He had been reclassified as an artilleryman, a role where he could excel with clear, direct instructions and tasks that didn't involve being dangerously close to rapidly spinning rotors. It was oddly reassuring to see him functioning well, and I realized that sometimes a "how did he pass basic training" story has a safe and surprising resolution. Even though he never became a helicopter mechanic, he thrived in a role that suited his strengths. It was a lesson in both the limitations and adaptability of people, even in a highly structured environment like the military. We often laughed quietly in the instructor's office about how he would get lost in the hallway staring at a fan. But the story stayed with me because it reminded me that basic training doesn't reveal every risk, and passing it doesn't mean a soldier is suited for every role. By the time I left the school, the image of him frozen under that ceiling fan remained vivid in my mind. He had passed basic training, but the real lesson was understanding that success in one area doesn't guarantee safety or effectiveness in another. Watching him later in Afghanistan, reclassified and performing competently, was a strange kind of closure, a reminder that even the oddest soldiers find a place where they belong.